child, not even 2 years old yet. Wesa lived in a wigwam with his mother and his father in the village called Black Crow. Black Crow was located between green forest, where you could look out and the hunter could find the deer, and the desert, where as you look out across the brown sands, you could see the mountains rising into the sky. One day, Wesa's mother and father picked him up and they carried him across the desert to the canyon in the mountains. The canyon where the rushing waters that never dry up flowed through. And next to the rushing waters that never dried up was a large pond where you could see the fish swimming in the pond, the lily pads and the frogs. And next to the pond was a large flat rock, ideal for a child to play on. Wesa's mother placed the child down in the middle of the rock, made sure that he was comfortable, had things to play with, and then she went with her husband a little further into the canyon to continue their fishing. Wesa played for a little while, and unknown to him, across the rushing waters that never dried up was a large group of trees. And behind this large group of trees was a hidden entrance into a long, dark cave. And in this long, dark cave was a mother bear. But a very sad and lonely mother bear. Because a couple days earlier, a hunter had gone through the area and had stolen her cubs. She was despondent. But the mother bear came out of the hidden entrance in the cave behind the trees, and she happened to see Wesa sitting on the rock. Ugh! Ugh! What a strange little cub! I will take that little cub, and I will take it to my den, and it can replace in my heart the ones that I have lost. So Mother Bear crossed the rushing waters that never dried up, picked up Wesa in her forepaws, and carried Wesa back to her den. Of course Wesa cried, but Mother and Father were too far up the canyon to hear the cries. A little while later, Wesa's parents came back to get him. But he was not there. They searched everywhere. They looked behind every tree, behind every rock, behind every bush. Despondent, the mother ran up and down the canyon calling, "Wesa! Wesa!" But there was no answer. Father said, "Wesa has been taken away, maybe by an eagle. We shall never see him again." And the mother said, "Oh no, no, I know he is here in the canyon. I can feel it in my heart. I will find him." But they did not find Wesa that day. Every little while, every few days, the mother came back looking for signs of Wesa. Months passed. Months passed into years. And still, Wesa's mother could not find her little lost son. Now Wesa, in the cave, lived in a dark and gloomy place, and being very tiny, soon forgot who his parents were. But he quickly learned the language of the beasts that he lived with, and he soon became like a wild animal. But in spite of Mother Bear's pleading to get him to walk on all four paws, Wesa would shake his head, grunt, no, and always walk on his own two little feet like his original mother had taught him. Time passed, and Wesa became big enough that he could care for himself. So often, he would leave the cave. He would go out, wandering for days and nights over the mountains. He even taught himself to swim in the pond by watching the other animals swimming. day, Wesa was in the pond, and he saw this strange creature coming across the canyon. And when the strange creature got to the water's edge, it saw Wesa. And it let out a shrill cry, a cry of elation. And it started waving. But Wesa was afraid. And Wesa swam over to the other side of the pond and ran up the bank and hid behind the brown bushes that were there. Yet the next day, Wesa came back to the pond, and the creature was there, sitting on a rock. And when the creature saw Wesa, it did not move, but slowly pushed a branch of red berries in Wesa's direction. Wesa came cautiously close, grabbed the branch of berries, and stepped back. Every day after that, when Wesa would approach the pond, he would find the stranger sitting there, always with something good to eat. In time, Wesa overcame his fear of the strange creature. And soon, they were playing together for hours every day on a large flat rock. One day, as the days were getting shorter, and the temperature was getting colder, and Wesa had already learned some of the strange sounds that the creatures had made. And Wesa had already learned that his own name was Wesa. And he had learned the names of the squirrels and the buzzard in the sky and the other creatures that roamed around the canyon. But now the temperatures were getting colder. And one day, the strange creature put a blanket around Wesa's shoulders, because Wesa had no clothes. And then, very carefully, the strange creature explained through words and hand movements that they were going to go out of the canyon a far, far away distance. Now Wesa had learned to love this strange creature, and so he was willing to go. Then, hand in hand, they walked out of the canyon. They walked across this brown desert all day long. And then, as the sun was in the sky and reached the edge of the sky, the sky, the earth turned red and then purple, colors that Wesa had never seen when he lived in the mountains. And they walked a little bit further. And suddenly, they were there where there were people, strange creatures that walked on two legs all over the place. Some of them big and tall and strong. Some of them little and weak. And some of them the same size as Wesa. When Wesa saw these creatures his own size, and all these creatures had red skin, just like the strange creature that had befriended him, he looked at them and he said, "Wesa, Wesa, Wesa, Wesa!" And everybody laughed. Everybody was elated because they got the biggest kick out of the fact that he could say this. Wesa liked his new home. He could play with his new friends all day long. He slept in a tent at night, and this strange creature that had befriended him took care of him. Wesa was no longer lonely. He was no longer hungry and cold. And time passed. And after about a year or so, Wesa had learned the language of these creatures. And he learned the story of his life. And he learned that his mother had lost him in the canyon. The mother, of course, being the same strange creature that had found him that day at the pond. And Wesa learned all about his family, his origins. And he learned that his father had been a brave warrior and had been killed in battle. Wesa was happy in his new home. And time passed. And Wesa grew up. And Wesa became a great and mighty hunter.